M.7 Find trigonometric ratios using reference angles. And on this, we're mostly going to be talking about 30, 60, 90 triangles. I'll explain that better in a minute. And 45, 90 triangles. Okay, so if you're taking an ACT, there is trig on the ACT, and one of these questions that we're talking about here will be on the ACT for the trig part. And to go in deeper on it, let's pretend that we had this equilateral triangle. And so if it's equilateral, it is also equal angular. If it's equal angular, then all of the angles are 60 degrees. And then let's say, and if it's equilateral, let's make all of the sides 2. And when we do that and we cut it in half, and get rid of that part of it, then this whole thing was 60, and if I cut it in half, then we have 30. So we have this 30, 60, 90 triangle. And the reason for that is whenever we have unit circles, most of the convenient angles are 30, 45, and 60, and we'll talk about the 45 in just a minute. And so if this side right here was 2, this side was 2, and then I cut it in half, we get 1. And using the quadratic formula, then this altitude is square root of 3. So we're going to break that up. And before I begin, I'm trying not to forget that when we talk about 60 degrees, 60 degrees is the same thing as pi over 3 in radians, and 30 degrees is the same thing as pi over 6. So the way that I remember it, the 6 and the 3, and the 3 and the 6. So let's see right here. So on all of the top ones, we have 60 degrees. And if we have this 60 degree angle right here, square root of 3 is opposite 60 degrees. 1 is adjacent, and 2 is the hypotenuse. So if we do sine, cosine, and tangent, sine would be square root of 3 over 2. Cosine is 1 over 2. And tangent is square root of 3 over 1, which is just square root of 3. Make that 2 better there. Okay. You want to somehow be able to recall these, maybe not necessarily in a quick fashion, but you want to be able to know how to get the answers when the ACT comes around. All right, so on these, the 30 degree angles, let's erase this and this and this. When we're talking about 30 degrees, then 1 is the opposite and square root of 3 is the adjacent. So sine of 30 is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine, that's so not right. My bad. I went blank. Sine 30 is 1 over 2. Cosine 30 is square root of 3 over 2. And tangent 30 is 1 over square root of 3, but you can't have a square root of 3 on bottom, so we multiply by square root of 3 and square root of 3 and get square root of 3 over 3. I'm going to talk about the reciprocal functions in just a little bit. I'm going to be kind of skipping around on these. Okay, let's go to the 45, 45. It really wouldn't matter what size these sides are. But it is an isosceles right triangle. If this is an isosceles right triangle, then these sides are going to be the same. And if these sides are the same, and then we do the Pythagorean theorem to be able to find the hypotenuse, we would get square root of 2. And just for reference, if it was 4, this side was 4, then this side was 4. And if we did the Pythagorean theorem, this side would be 4 square root of 2. Okay, so it really doesn't matter how big the sides are. You're going to be able to get some reference points on that. And because it's 45, 45, both of these are 45, so if this is 45 degrees angle right here, opposite and adjacent, or if this is the 45, this would be opposite and adjacent, so it's both going to be 1, so you're going to get the same answer no matter which one you're going to be looking at. So 1 over square root of 2, but you can't have square root of 2 on bottom, so square root of 2 and square root of 2 gives you square root of 2 over 2. 1 over square root of 2, can't have square root on bottom, so square root of 2 over 2. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, which is 1 over 1, which is 1. Now, whenever I was in school, we wasn't allowed to use notes every single time. And we actually had to have these memorized. And so this is what my teacher did. We made a 3x3 box. We put sine, cosine, and tangent here. And it needs to be in that order. And when our reference angles, we're talking about 30, 60, and 45 degree angles, right? Well, we're going to put those in order. 30, 45, and 60. And then we sing jingle bells. Okay? Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a horse open sleigh. Hey. All right. So we're going to do that, but we are going to use these reference angles. And it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2. Square root 3 over 3, 1 square root 3. Both these have square roots. Basically, everything would have a square root on top. But if I put a square root of 1 on top, what's the square root of 1? 1. So it really wouldn't matter on that. Here we go. So this is 1 over 2. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2, square root 3 over 3, 1 square root 3. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2, square root 3 over 3, 1 square root 3. And I actually used that whenever I was taking the ACT. So, yes, I know this is throwing everything out there at one time, but that's what I learned. Okay, I'm going to erase this now. Okay, now reciprocal functions. So we're just going to flip these. 2 over square root of 3. Can't have square root of 3 on bottom. So we multiply by square root of 3. And we get 2 square root of 3. And if I did that, we look real closely, there's a square root of 3 over 2 and a square root of 3 over 2, right? Okay, so we know that the cosecant 60 is going to be the same thing as secant 30. Cosine 60 and secant would be 2 over 1, which is 2, and 2. And 1 over square root 3, square root 3 and square root 3. So it'd be square root 3 over 3. Square root 3 over 3. And this is going to be just square root 3, because if we already had square root 3 right here, what was the reciprocal of it? It would be square root of 3. So there you go on that. Reciprocal of these, 2 over square root 2. Can't have square root on bottom. Which would be 2 square root of 2 over 2. The 2's would cancel, so we'd have square root of 2. Since those are the same, then those are the same. And if I take the reciprocal of 1, it'd be 1 over 1, which is 1. So there are those. Those aren't going to be on the ACT. It's going to be a sine or cosine tangent of 30, 45, 60.